Hey guys, it's Dmitry here again, and today I would like to discuss about another really important topic. I'm going to discuss about the data types in JavaScript. I know, and I remember a couple of times we mentioned data types before, right? But we didn't mention really important part or aspect of data types. So in general, we call them primitive data types and non-primitive data types. So that's how we call them. And when we're talking about the primitive data types, we're talking about numbers, booleans, string, null, undefined, and symbol. Symbol is a new data type, which was introduced in ESLint 7. And later on, we're going to discuss about that. I'm not going to discuss in details about that in this tutorial. So, and another one, obviously, it's a non-primitive data types, and we're referring to objects. And this kind of data types, it's called reference type, right? So guys, idea is first we're going to discuss about primitive data types or primitives, and I will show you a couple of examples, and then we continue discussing about the reference data types or non-primitive data types. Okay, let's jump into that. I would like to first define two variables. Let a equal to 30, for instance. Let b equal to a. It's quite common exercise, and I will show you why it's super popular, because it's showing how it works behind the scene, or like the actual storing of data, right? So, and let's log it out. Console.log a and then b, right? You can see we define two variables, right? We're storing SOTI, and then what we're doing, we storing a variable a to variable b, right? So what will happen behind the scene where this value going to be stored to this variable, right? And variable is going to hold its own memory, right? What will happen next when we trying to copy a to b? In this case, obviously, a new memory space going to be created, and this is going to be allocated to variable b, right? And essentially, the actual data of variable a going to be copied to variable b. So they're going to be two separate pieces of data, right? And they're going to sit in a completely different memory slots, right? So, and how we can verify that, guys? For example, okay, let's run it first. And if you run it, we can see like SOTI, right? So obviously the values are the same, right? But what if I would like to say, for instance, a equal to 40, right? So basically the value of variable a was changed, right, from 30 to 40, right? And now it's going to be 40. But let's see what will happen. Still, variable b is going to have value 30, right? When this line was executed, but at that stage, essentially, variable b is going to have its own value, and the value is going to be exactly the same as in case of a, right? It's going to be 30. But because later on, you can see, guys, we change it to 40. It means obviously that these two values and these two variables, they act completely separately, right? So we can come up with different values and to store it in these variables, right? And they act completely separately, right? So that's how it is in case of primitives. But situation completely different in case of non-primitives. And for example, I can come up with an object key, and I would like to say like that. So, and essentially here we creating this object, right? And this object, it's going to be stored somewhere in the memory, right? And even it looks from here that looks like this object going to be stored in this variable, but it's not going to be the case, right? What will happen in this case? This variable is going to carry the actual address of the memory where this actual value or where the actual object itself going to be stored, right? So it's going to just have a memory address. It's going to carry memory address. It's really important to understand this aspect. And then guys, here, right? For example, I'm trying to achieve the same. I'm trying to copy A to B, right? But in this case, what will happen? We're not going to copy the whole object, right? It's not going to be copied, this object, right? Because object, again, it's sitting somewhere in the memory, right? It's just sitting over there, right? But when we're copying A to B, it means we're copying the actual address, right? Address of, address that's, you know, the value itself is going to be just address, which is like a pointer in order to identify where the actual object is sitting. And the address that's going to be copied to B is going to be exactly the same. As a result, guys, both of these A and B variables, they're going to point to the same object, right? And that's how it works, guys. So, but in general, we can say they, A and B, going to share the same object, right? This object. And what I'm going to do now, in order to verify that that's how it is, right? I'm going to say A dot key, and I'm going to just define a new number, right? A new value for this property key. So, and let's see. So, remember, again, in case of primitives, they act separately, right? Independently, completely independently. But now if you run it again here, so guys, you can see straight away this A and B, they gave us exactly the same object, right? They're storing the same address, and this address is like a map, right? By using this address that again stored in A and B variables can point to the same object. And obviously when we change something in this object and try to log out A and B, both of these variables, they're going to reflect changes of this object, right? That's a really important thing to understand, guys. And that's in general what the main difference between reference types and the primitive types are. So I hope, guys, it makes sense. This topic is quite important, and it's really important to understand. I hope it makes sense to you. And let me know in the comments below if you have any questions, and if you do, then I can try to explain it again or try to come up with a different approach, I guess. Don't get me wrong, you know, maybe it's not that easy, because the topic itself, you know, it's a bit complex, but it's not super complex. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed. Please like this video if you enjoyed this tutorial, and please subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet, and follow my tutorials. And see you guys next time. Next time I'm going to talk about another topic related, of course, to JavaScript, and it's going to be even more exciting. Trust me, guys, on this one. Trust me. Thank you very much, guys. Goodbye.